Welcome back to the Small Business Show. I'm your host, Lori Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. It truly does help the show, and it helps other budding entrepreneurs find the information and the inspiration that they need to continue or even start on this journey. This week, I am super excited to introduce you to Barbara Turley, investor, entrepreneur, founder, and CEO of the Virtual Hub, a business she started entirely by accident. It happens, guys, and I can't wait to dive into this episode and this story. This episode is jam-packed with information and inspiration, so grab your paper and pen. Barbara has quickly scaled her business to become one of the industry leaders in integrating in-house virtual assistants into her clients' businesses. Barbara, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me
Thanks
today.
so much for having me, Laurie. I'm really excited to be on the show.
Certainly. And I'm super excited to have you. I'm super excited about your journey with the virtual hub and everything that you've accomplished. I'm not just excited, but truly personally inspired, as I mentioned to you before we actually started the recording. So I really am excited to hear about your journey. But before we get there, I want to rewind the clock just a bit. I want to go back to the days of, say, junior high or high school, a time when an aunt or an uncle or even a mentor in school would have asked you what it is you want to be when you grow up. Barbara, what was your answer to that question back then?
Oh, I wanted to be a doctor. And I wanted to be a doctor in the big hospitals where all the action was taking place. So there was no lemonade stands or entrepreneurial wish in my bones at the time. I wanted to be a doctor. And clearly that didn't pan out. But I always think that was actually for the best. But I was fascinated by the nervous system, biology, that kind of thing. And yeah, I was attracted to that area.
That's so funny. And I'm familiar with that thought process. Back in the day, I wanted to be a pediatrician myself. I'd run around the house and give everybody their personal checkups and physicals.
Oh, yes. Yes. I did fight hard to do it, actually. I did. And I just didn't get enough of the points in my final year to study medicine. And I actually felt like I had given it my all. And I made a decision very young. I mean, I was only 17 and it was quite an adult decision to make, that I decided that I wanted to maybe try a different path and that I felt I had given it my all and I didn't think I was going to win that race. Now, maybe that was me subconsciously going, yeah, maybe that's not for me. I don't know. But I ended up doing a completely different thing. I ended up in English and economics, actually, at university. And that led me on a great path, totally different from medicine. Yeah, totally different.
I love that. And I thank you so much for bringing that up, because it's one of those things that I try to lend credit to and bring the audience's attention to is your gut. Your gut feeling on this journey, how important it is to truly listen to it, not just on the entrepreneurial journey, but in life overall. If you don't listen to your gut, you find yourself in some perilous situations.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Seriously. So it's so awesome of you to have had that insight and that recognition, even at the age of 17.
And Laurie, here's a really interesting thing, right? I think in the end, this is a very short version, I ended up working as an equity trader in investment banking. And when I was on the trading floor, I realized that, I mean, it's not life or death, right? Let's be honest. It's not like working in the ER. However, the fast dynamic nature of it and the decision making was really quick. It's kind of like an emergency room. It's kind of like it can be chaotic and, there's lots of things moving. And I realized that actually maybe what I was actually looking for was the dynamic environment, because I felt the feeling for me was kind of the same, of the adrenaline rush. And weirdly, years later in the business that I'm in now, at its core, I'm actually in the business of matching supply and demand. We have demand for VAs, we've got supply of people. Business is all about actually matching supply and demand, which is actually the core of what being a trader is. Like, it's the same thing, right? So it's really clear that you can end up on different paths. So anyone listening to this thinking the wrong path, sometimes it's the feeling you're after or the type of environment you're after, and you can actually achieve that in different ways. It doesn't have to be this career. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You are giving so many tidbits. This episode
The
So
gray hairs,
awesome.
you can't see them from the from the
You're
learning. You're funny.
you're hilarious. No, I absolutely appreciate you bringing that up because the journey can definitely ebb and flow in different ways, and you can find that itch. You can find what you're looking for, and satisfy that itch in different ways. And it really takes a moment of taking a step back, evaluating yourself, recognizing what you're truly looking for, what that it really is and what it is you're truly after, and then going and finding what that is to satisfy it, regardless of what the industry is. Because you can always flex and figure out how to make your way into that industry. But first and foremost, you got to figure out you.
Yes, 100%. Yes, agree with that.
Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. So I think that was one of your first steps, obviously, to, making this decision and taking that, you know,
Trying a different
pivot,
path,
that first pivot.
pivoting, my
Exactly.
first pivot,
In that
exactly.
journey. Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. So tell us about how it is you actually started the journey with the virtual hub. Where were you in your journey? And what was it that kind of sparked that thought process for you?
Oh, listen, this is the next, if I could say, this was like the next. I've had many pivots in my life, but there's a couple of big ones, and this was the biggest pivot ever. So I had spent 15 years in the financial industry, in corporate, like, high
Yeah.
finance, all that sort of thing, no entrepreneurial stuff going on whatsoever. But I knew in my heart that I didn't want to be a corporate mom. And a big
Mm,
high five to all the corporate women out there who are doing amazing work and trying to be mothers at the same time. I think it's the hardest thing in the world to do. Now, being an entrepreneur and being a mother is hard too, but at least I kind of call my own shots a bit. So I left my corporate career. I had invested in some companies though, so I kind of had an income stream, and I was okay to leave, right? Put it that way.
good stuff.
And I launched a business, and the short story is I had a stunning website. I had paid ad campaigns. I did product launch formula. I was on fire, and it totally failed. Totally failed. And I went through a couple of months of like utter depression. Look, it
Right.
had it going. I think it would have taken off had it, but the energy to push it was a bit hard for me. And at the time, I was doing some business coaching on the side, just some consulting. And I noticed that all the business I was working, they were all smaller businesses, some of them solopreneurs, and the issue they were all facing, regardless of industry or type of business, is if they didn't hire staff, they weren't going to be able to grow. This is 12 years
Right.
ago now. And if they didn't grow, they weren't going to be able to hire staff because they couldn't
got it.
afford it. So they were just in this
Yep.
vicious cycle of the vortex of busy work, basically,
Mhm.
and wanting to get out of it, but not knowing how. I had read Tim Ferriss's book, The 4 Hour Work Week, and I was like, I have a VA in the Philippines. Why don't I get you some of her friends? And, we can see if we can free up your time, basically. And before
Right.
I knew it, no joke, I was getting more calls for VAs than I was for business coaching. And one day I just thought, I wonder if there's a business in this. I had never even heard of anyone doing this. And within about a month, I found myself in the ultimate pivot into a business with no website, no business plan, no offer, nothing. And I was in business after about a month. And I was enjoying it. And I thought, gosh, I'm in a totally different business. I shut the other one, and 8 years later, we're 300 employees. And, that's the rest is sort of history, really. Not easy, but yeah, that was a huge pivot that happened very much by accident, very organically. And again, my gut was like, I think there's something in this. So that's where I went. Yeah.
That is outstanding. I, first of all, want to commend you on finding the business that validated itself prior to your even launching. You do not need to have the website up. You don't need to have the
No.
business registered. You don't need to have all your licenses in place. You don't need, no, what you need to do
Nobody
is
asked me for that.
validate the
Nobody
idea.
ever said,
Exactly.
nobody said to me, what's your website? They
There
were
you
like,
go.
can you get me one of those VAs? I was like, sure. Like, it was
There
as
was a
simple as
need
that. There
and
was
you
a
could
need,
fulfill
and
it.
it wasn't the sexiest need ever. I
Right.
wanted to be like, I was doing this financial sort of education platform for women, and I wanted
Yes.
to be an influencer and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, it was the picks and shovels that started the game. And it's funny because I've kind of come full circle now, where at the time, one of my visions was, because a friend of mine said to me, are you not getting away from your vision though? Your vision was that you really wanted to have impact in businesses and help more women to, have financial, to see that money is the tool that you can change the world with. That was kind of my thing. And I've come full circle now. And now I'm like, hold on a second. Now I'm actually helping businesses all over the world to get out of the weeds, to get out of the busy work vortex so that they can do the work that moves the needle and grows. And at the end of the day, small business and medium business, these are the businesses that will take economies out of the rut that we're all in right now. It is very important that small business thrives and doesn't just survive, but actually thrives and grows. So it's like I said, my sort of vision morphed a bit, but it's the same feeling. Again, it's a bit like
Right.
the emergency room trading floor thing. I'm getting the same, I'm feeling like I'm getting the same vision realized, but in a completely different way. And that's been
Mhm.
really powerful for me to realize, that that's important.
Congratulations. Because that is an important moment, is to
Yes.
recognize when those moments occur, is to take stock of that, to not just recognize, but celebrate those moments. Because if you don't take the time to celebrate, it just becomes another day, just becomes another moment in a
Yeah.
journey that can be very trying, very tiring,
Yes.
and difficult to motivate yourself on. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
And I have
Those are
felt all of those things. For anyone
yeah,
thinking, oh, how did she's people say to me, how did you do it? You were like, I'm going to know. There's been a lot of sleepless nights. Practically,
yes,
nothing's easy.
exactly.
And you see people, what you see now is 10 years later, kind of saying 10 years. So the first few years were pretty tough. Pretty hard.
I understand. And
Yeah.
it's funny you've brought it up. I'm sure my audience is so tired of hearing me say this, but you're such a woman after my own heart. I have to share with you what I
Yeah.
call that mode is wino mode, where we're too busy working in, not
Yes.
on our
The
business.
business. Yeah.
And so I work with financial advisors and we move them into what I call boss mode, where we're building out the operation to support their success.
Oh,
So
hallelujah. Yes. Because
I
a
knew you'd
financial
appreciate
advice.
that.
Yeah. And financial advice businesses. I actually spent 5 years in asset management talking to financial advice businesses. At that time, I was talking more about portfolio construction, or the
Yeah.
advisors listening will know what I mean. But there's power planning and there's admin and all the compliance and all this sort of
Mhm,
stuff. And it's really
mhm.
difficult for financial advice businesses actually to get out of the weeds because you're kind of bogged down with
Exactly.
a lot of compliance and
Exactly.
stuff. So there are ways though. Of course there's ways. But so
There
so I
are.
commend you for helping that industry to help, because their clients are in bad need of help. So
Right, right, right. That's how my journey was launched. It was 2009. I was in the financial
uh,
services industry. I was licensed and then I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease.
oh
And at that point, I was not interested in the corporate umbrella over my head. It
no.
was such a burden at that point with the
Yeah.
illness that launching on my own and filling the need that I could see already existed and knew was apparent in the
Hmm.
industry was the best way for me. But I'm guilty of it myself. There's definitely moments when I go into wino mode. So I'm familiar with it still.
Oh, we all, even
And
I do that still.
exactly,
Even I'm still doing
exactly.
it. But
And
sometimes you
that's
have to do
why
it for a while yourself. And then,
there you go.
my philosophy is actually the more of it you can do yourself for a while, and then you create a
Yeah.
system and then you delegate that system. That's powerful. That's what I
There you go.
recommend. Yeah.
There you go.
Then you have
Personal
control.
knowledge.
Yes.
There you
Yeah.
go. Exactly. Personal knowledge before payment for service is
Yes.
definitely the most important on this journey because and I'm glad you brought that up because if you don't have the personal knowledge on the journey, it's so easy to be taken advantage of. You won't have a clue what you're paying for in services.
Totally.
You won't have a
Yeah.
clue why you're paying for something. You won't understand what the service provider is attempting to explain to you, especially when it comes to things such as web development, SEO, the
Hmm.
background, the back
SEO.
end of your website. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
as annoying as it is to get through and understand, it's so important to have that personal knowledge before you make payments for the
Yeah.
service. So
Yeah. And it is
definitely.
hard. I mean, it's hard because, if you're dealing with developers and coders and stuff, that I've done that. It's quite difficult because
Right.
you think, I don't know what I'm talking about. But
Right.
within
Right.
reason, it's better to get educated a bit and to sort of,
Yes.
yeah. Yeah. Because otherwise your gut will be screaming, I don't want to pay this bill. I don't know what I'm getting. Yeah, I don't know what this person is doing. I've been
Exactly.
there.
You get so
Yeah.
scared. Yeah, you're scared of making the payments because you have no idea what you're paying for,
What they're doing.
and
Yeah.
rightfully so. Exactly. So, no, definitely. So, I'd love for you to tell us all about the virtual hub, where you are now with your journey, and please share.
Sure. So the virtual hub, we are a Philippines based. I mean, I'm based in Europe and we have some people around the world, but the operations are all based in the Philippines. We have 300 employees now, and we are supporting businesses everywhere from Australia, lots in the US, Canada,
Yeah.
New Zealand. We're global really, but I mean the big hubs, and some in Europe, not as much as I'd like in Europe, but mainly US, Canada, Australia, huge markets for us. We're supporting lots of financial advisors actually, and that industry is close to my heart. So we do quite a lot of work
Yeah.
there. Um, and the main thing about the virtual hub, I noticed, and again, this was the thing I saw, probably being a newbie in an industry is not a bad idea sometimes, because you see how other players are doing it and how
Hmm.
you think that's broken. And you're like, I think I'm just going to build it differently, which is what I did. So I very early on I mean, I think we were one of the only businesses that was like, the need here, VAs need to be trained. Like you can't, we have an entire learning and organizational department that's very large now. And we don't recruit for clients. So this is a big thing. We're not a recruiter. We actually recruit for ourselves. We go out, we know exactly the types of people we're looking to find. We don't actually care about their experience for being assistants. And we have our own training platform. We put everyone on full salaries and benefits from day one, and we put them through our training programs. And only when we feel we have produced the quality VA that we know our clients are looking for, do we even attempt to start to try to pair with the client demand coming in. So like I said, it's this matching of supply and demand. Like I think I had the innate ability to do that from my trading days and to take
Hmm.
more risk on. So I will take forward risk like that other companies wouldn't be prepared to do. We invest up front heavily and take the risk that we can sell on, or we can place people. So that's why, our client success scores are very high. So our NPS score at the moment is 89, 90 with clients. When clients come to us, they get an assistant. It's usually on the first round of meeting a selection of our people that they go, oh my gosh, I don't know who to choose. They're all great. So that is the success metric for me, rather than just bums on seats. Because, like I sort of feel we should have 1,000 staff and not 300, but the success metrics are very important. Longevity of employees and longevity of client. And that's the stuff we do very well. We do cover a large breadth of industries. So we have everything from Facebook ad agencies to consultants and solopreneurs. We've got lots of those. And then we have some really big companies. At the moment, we have a huge client in Australia that's $100 million asset management company. So we work across a large breadth of clients. And I'm very excited at the moment because we launched about a year ago a new part of the virtual hub. So obviously people is a major part of what we do at the moment. But we realized early on that, platforms and processes can be the bugbear as well. And if you don't optimize in operations, it's all about optimizing platforms, processes, and people. And that includes your onshore people, optimizing their time by using offshore teams and things like that. So we've launched the consulting and the implementation arm of the virtual hub, we do platforms like Asana, etc. We're huge Asana users, Zapier, LastPass, all these things, and process optimization as well. And that I feel I want to kind of develop us into a scaling solution for businesses and not just a VA company. So that's a lot of the stuff that I'm out talking about on social media and stuff at the moment. Very passionate about helping businesses to really move the needle at the end of the day.
Sounds like you are really filling a need that a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners need right now.
Yeah,
The turnover that different industries have experienced based off of the pandemic alone. There are
I know.
so many people who are just stuck in wino mode. And it's so difficult to get out of it without some sort of assistance. It's almost impossible at times.
Yeah,
So kudos to you for taking that on. Kudos to you for the very specific way that you're going about training from the
yeah.
inside out. I adore that idea. And I only wish I had met you a couple years ago.
Yeah, I know.
I
And
know.
look, I'll be
I may
honest,
still need you
people
in the
listening,
future.
people listening might say, oh, I tried that, it didn't work for me. And that is a big problem. I will say to anyone
Right.
listening, I am here to tell you that it is not easy. It's simple. The strategy is simple, but getting it right is not easy. So anyone who's like, I tried that, it nearly killed me. And, because it can be quite difficult. Delegation in itself is a really difficult thing. And having offshore team members can be quite hard. So I hear you, and it's not an easy thing to get right. But if you do get it right, the dividends it's going to pay you for years in the future. And the financial people understand the compound effect of that. It just pays dividends in your business for years to come if you get it right. So that's what I'm at.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's truly important to get it right when it comes to
Yeah.
onboarding those team members and making sure everyone fits. And for those who have attempted, to onboard a VA in the past and maybe haven't found success, what's maybe one gold nugget you might suggest to them in terms of, attempting to implement a VA in the future? One or two gold nuggets. Of course, they need to turn to you for assistance with implementing that VA. But
Yeah.
what's one or two things that you feel like would really
There's a couple of key things to getting it right. Number one, people tend to go, I need a VA and I need them yesterday, which is fine. We all do that, right? We all do that. But it's really important to slow down for a minute, even though you don't want to. You're going to slow down now to speed up later. So that's the tip about anything. Slow down now so that you can speed up later. And then you can gather momentum and get flywheels moving and all that sort of thing. With VAs, when you're recruiting them, people will say hire slowly. I'm like, listen, just give them a load of testing, give them some work to do, pay them for it, pay them for it and see what the work is like, right? And then bring them in, and you've got to set some specific. I'm a big believer in objectives and key results, which those of you who maybe haven't heard of that yet, please do Google it. There's a whole movement around it where you set the objective for bringing this person in. So what is this objective if it's to free your time by 30%? And then you would set up like, what would be the key results to show you, both of you, that this is working over time? And you want to connect those goals and key results to the actual work being done. So the VA themselves knows, is the work that I'm doing here actually driving the result? And they know where we're trying to get together, and it's a collaboration. It's still not going to be perfect, but that in itself helps everyone to be aligned and on the one same page. And I mean, after that, you're talking, using proper SOPs and Asana or project management tools. Those are all the tactics, but really the getting it right and being aligned is very, very important. And that goes for anyone you bring on, not just VAs, to be honest.
That's very true. That is an excellent, excellent tip. Really taking the time to set that goal for yourself prior to bringing the person on. Make sure you know what those roles are, what hats they're going to wear, how they're going to fit into your practice, and what you're truly hiring them for. Blindly hiring on a team member is waste of your time as well as theirs. It's not just your time and your money that you're wasting. You're wasting somebody else's time and energy too on, having that confusing moment of, how am I supposed to help this person? What am I being paid for again? Like, when there's a lack of clarity for them, it makes it that much more difficult. And then it becomes a struggle amongst the energy overall. So no, I definitely agree. That is a really key piece. Thank you for sharing that. Really make sure to align your goals for yourself prior to onboarding so that the two of you can have that aligned goal and set those tactics out as you're moving forward.
I would just add a final point to that, actually. It becomes very easy when you do it that way. Now, there's a bit of work to it, but it becomes very easy. And one of the bugbears a lot of entrepreneurs have is this, I don't know what they're doing problem. I don't know what they're doing. It becomes very easy if you structure your OKRs properly and the work connected to work being done, the two of you together. It becomes quite obvious then whether you have a person issue or a skill issue or a training issue or an attitude issue. Like, you know what I mean? So you kind of get to the truth quicker. And sometimes you find out you've got a great person, but maybe they just don't have the right training, or maybe their skill set is not quite what you know what I mean? That it's very easy to figure it out. Yeah.
Exactly. And then once you understand what the issue is, it's super simple to go ahead and resolve it. Super simple to, figure out what those steps are that you need in order to move forward. So excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. We really appreciate it. So I would love to know if in fact you were able to borrow this magic wand that we have over here and share with our guests every now and then. And you could waive it and change anything at all in the industry of virtual assistants. What do you feel that would be for you? And how do you feel it would truly affect the industry of virtual assistants overall?
Oh, wow. So much I could unpack there. I'm going to try and pick one. The industry, like every industry has toxicity. And there is major toxicity in the virtual assistant industry. There are clients screwing VAs over and VAs screwing clients over. If I could just put it in those simple terms, right? It's that's happening everywhere. So if I had a magic wand, I mean, one of the things that I focused on heavily at the Virtual Hub, and I learned this from Vern Harnish's Scaling Up program, which I recommend anyone do. It's fantastic for anyone who wants to scale a company. The focus on the people piece. And I realized that the business that we're in, there's two heads of the beast, so to speak. There's the client experience and there's the employee experience. And if you focus your attention on getting both of those two things right, obviously there's all the bottom up work that it takes to get those two things right. Then you will have a great business. And I think the industry is too short-term focused on getting the work done and no clear, there isn't clear alignment. There isn't clear task instructions. There's misaligned expectations and all sorts of things that lead to really unhappy experiences across the board, both on the VA side and on the client side. So yeah, I think, but again, that's slowing down to speed up. You have to slow down to do that. Yeah,
definitely. It goes back to, lending credit to what you were saying before, really making sure that those goals are aligned, that you're really, really clear with what it is you're looking for when you're onboarding. So if you had the opportunity to go back, say 10, 15 years and tell yourself just one thing, what do you feel like that would be?
I've been asked this question a lot, and it is actually, we talked about intuition. I think, I'm older now, like we all are, a lot of life experience. And I always knew, even as a teenager, back to that, like how we started when I was 17, I always knew exactly what I wanted. I'm a very self-directed person. And I now have a 6-year-old who's the same. So I'm like, okay, she knows what she wants, right? It's a good trait to have. But it's taken me too long to kind of trust my intuition. And, I've done jumps and made pivots and things. But if I could go back, I would say, yeah, you got to listen and not push it away and go, maybe that's rubbish, that actually it is very powerful. And I think it takes women in particular. I mean, I don't know how men feel about this because we're not men, but I think as women, we have this really deep intuition, and our society, or whatever's going on these days, we've been sort of taught to push it away and not listen to it. And it's taken me a long time to go, do you know what? I knew that was going to happen. I knew it, and to trust my intuition. Yeah, more. So that would be my advice.
Thank you. No, I agree with you 100%. Intuition is super important in life, not just in business. You got to listen to that inner voice. You got to have clarity with it, because without it, there's just turmoil overall, and you can't be at ease. So no, thank you. I truly agree with that. Definitely. So I really enjoyed having on today and chatting all about your business, the Virtual Hub, and chatting all about your journey. Please share the best way for our listeners or our viewers, I should say at this point, swapping over from the podcast to television, it's still, a transition in my own head some days. So definitely share with our viewers the best way to find you.
Sure. So at the moment, over the last few years, I have been very absent of social media because I was too busy building the business. But more recently, I've really started coming out, and I'm very much enjoying entering the conversation on LinkedIn. And I'm probably going to maybe delve into Twitter. But in LinkedIn, where I share a lot of my philosophies, and I'm posting several times a week there. And I would love to hear from any of the viewers there, comment on what I'm saying. I'm talking about deeper versions of all the stuff I'm sharing here. And I'd love if you entered the conversation with me. So on LinkedIn, just look up Barbara Turley. And I didn't mean to do this, but I'm wearing yellow, and I've got a yellow background on my LinkedIn. So it's just Barbara Turley on LinkedIn. And of course, if you want to come and chat with us about VAs or read more about what we're doing, thevirtualhub.com, of course, is where you can come. I have a podcast over there as well. It's not a podcast that's continuing at the moment, but there's about 50 shows there, all about every sort of problem you can imagine with VAs. So if you have, like, if
Yeah.
you're wondering something, there's probably a show there on that. And we've tons of content on our site to help you with delegation, etc. So, and of course, you can come and talk to us there as well.
Excellent. Well, the virtual hub, go check out all of the episodes there. Join her on LinkedIn, enter the conversation. Barbara, I will definitely be joining you over there in the conversations on LinkedIn. I look
Great.
forward to it. And I thank you so much for sharing your journey and for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been great sharing.